we're coming up to the spot where we're going to do our continuing ongoing series about arguing with liberals and winning. And I'd like to present to you. Are you ready, Kath? Come on, let's do it, baby. Kathy McElhaney. All right.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's so good to see all of you here tonight. In this ongoing series, I chose the topic of equality and how it should or should not be enforced by law. So I'd like to speak tonight about the liberal fantasy of legislated equality. I need to put my glasses on. This is this unrealistic notion that equality can and should be enforced by law. We are overwhelmed and bombarded on a daily basis by the Obama administration's ideological obsession with equality. From his class warfare tactics, his downplaying and seeming embarrassment of the exceptionalism of our country and its standing in the world, to his one-size-fits-all healthcare plan, he is attempting to eradicate all that makes America unique and, by extension, all that makes us unique as people. If he and his liberal base had their way, we Americans would be reduced to a homogeneous mass where everyone earned the same money, thought the same thoughts, worshipped the same, ate the same. In essence, no differences, because to a liberal, any form of inequality is unacceptable. As many liberals will argue, they are the ones who are driven by their compassion and concern for human beings, while we conservatives care solely for the preservation of a system that rewards the few with economic privilege, status, and financial wealth. They've turned these accusations into a class argument for the little people. You know, the 99%, as Obama and his Occupy Wall Streeters would have the politically ignorant among us believe. After all, the Declaration of Independence says all men are created equal, so we must strive to be indistinguishable from one another in the liberal's mind. Well, let's examine this premise. I'd like to begin by asking all of you to just look across the table at people that are sitting with you, look across the room, and tell me what you observe. Just take a minute to do that. Well, any observations? What's the most glaring thing? We are all different. Yes, that's right. We're different heights, different weights, different ages, different athletic abilities, different everything. That's the way God intended it, or else we'd all be clones of one another. We human beings are by nature creatures of limitations. No one is equal to another person, not physically, not mentally, not morally, not spiritually. In fact, all men are created unequally, except in one sense. All men are created equal under the law. But the liberals, in observing inequalities among individuals, want to go beyond mere equality under the law to enforce equality by law. And there's a big difference. In other words, whereas equality under law protects unequal persons equally, equality by law penalizes some and rewards others for being unequal. This is what Barry Goldwater argues in The Conscience of a Conservative. And I don't know if you've read the book. If you haven't, pick it up. It is a great read. In Goldwater's opinion, liberals, in an effort to compel progress and equality, fight against the nature of man. It is the conservative, he argued, that has learned and respects that each human being is a unique creation and that man's most sacred possession is his individual soul. To regard man as part of any undifferentiated mass is to consign him to ultimate slavery. But the liberal attempts to level the playing field go on. Massive debt, overreach of government control in the private sector, ineffective government social programs, wasteful spending, and the most damaging, a nurturing of the entitlement mentality are all eroding the fabric of our country. And they do this all in the name of equality. And Obama has already begun socializing the means of production through government takeovers and bailouts. So how do we answer the liberal argument that we conservatives have no moral compass, no sense of social obligation, no concern for the unemployed, the uninsured, or the elderly. How do we defend our position without seeming to be callous and unconcerned? Well, first we must start by communicating that we do care about all of these things, but that we do not believe that government is the solution. Free markets, free from government interference, must be allowed to do what they do best: increase prosperity and opportunity, and provide anyone who is willing to do the hard work a piece of the American dream. Secondly, I think we must point out that government cannot force equality by law because the human condition is by nature unequal. And it is that uniqueness that is our most sovereign possession. Instead, we should be developing our potential for the betterment of society as a whole within the context of our talents and our own capabilities. Sorry. Thirdly, we must point out the fallacy of the argument that it is acceptable to confiscate the earnings or possessions of X in order to give them to Y. Liberals are quick to point out that providing for the less fortunate is our moral duty. But we must counter that with the immorality of taking by force that which rightfully belongs to another person. If we extend this argument further, we can see that if the state has the right to take what it deems necessary to help one group, the unequal, then we all have the right to demand special treatment because, as we said before, we are all unequal by nature. And if the state has the right to confiscate on behalf of a minority, does it have more of a right to confiscate for the majority? You see how this can snowball out of control. And all we have to do is remember that the Holocaust was the foreseeable consequence of conceding to the state the right to take in the name of equality. Fourth, we know that the recipients of equality-driven government programs ultimately just end up mortgaging themselves to the state, granting to that state the power to give and withhold as it sees fit. In addition, our argument for less government should always include the observation that when citizens become wards of the state, they eliminate any personal responsibility for themselves. As Goldwater believed, this is one of the great evils of welfarism. It transforms the individual from a dignified, industrious, self-reliant being into a dependent creature without him even knowing it. Finally, I think that George Will summed it up beautifully when he wrote, "One consequence of unlimited government in the pursuit of equality is unlimited dependency, learned dependency, a degrading addiction of citizens to public provisions." I believe that as conservatives, we must expose these liberal ideas as flawed, that these programs that may have started out as well-meaning attempts to help the less fortunate have actually resulted in a lower standard of living, generational dependence on government handouts, and a growing segment of society that believes that they are incapable of thinking for themselves, supporting themselves, and knowing how best to live their lives. They have been turned into pawns of the political system, which buys their allegiance with our tax dollars, and they are enslaved to a system that seeks to keep them dependent on it. Thank you.
Very good. Very good. I enjoy that. Is this series, should we continue doing this every month? Yes. Okay, good. We will then.